What's going on, guys? Welcome to the waiver wire edition of this podcast, the Fair Shake Football Get Down with me and Josh here. We're gonna just discuss some guys we like on waivers and why you should get them at all costs.
Yeah, I mean, week 8 early waiver wire edition. Let's get it rolling.
Yeah, man. Do you want to name some guys you like, and we'll just go like that?
Well, obviously,
I think they're gonna be pretty similar.
Yeah, I mean, I think almost maybe top pickup this week would be Kenneth Gainwell.
I agree.
With Miles Sanders going down, obviously he's going to get probably the bulk of the carries.
I think that you made a good point before we started the pod and said that Boston Scott is also worthwhile, because I don't think that Gainwell is going to be a guy that they're ever going to really give 20 carries a game to. Mm-hmm. But I do think they're going to want to run a little bit more, or at least the same that they've done. So I think that those two guys will combine for 20, 25, carries, and I think it'll largely be Gainwell. Yes, I do agree with you.
Yeah, I mean, he had a 13-yard touchdown in this one. He finished the day with 61 total yards and a touchdown on 9 touches. He's not going to be just a complete, absolute stud, but if you have a void to fill in week 8, I definitely think he is a intriguing pickup.
He's got Detroit too.
Yeah, especially in PPR leagues. He's got a RB2 potential value now in your league. So if you have Miles Sanders and don't have Gainwell, obviously he's probably your top dog to pick up this week.
Yeah, I think he's an important pickup right now, because he is a guy that, especially in PPR scoring leagues, like what a lot of people thought. There was a group of people that thought he was going to flat out beat out Miles Sanders as the lead back there in Philly, and that was never going to happen. But what he was doing was carving out a very significant role for himself, even a larger role than what Nyheim Hines has in Indy, which is another guy that he's been kind of compared to by people at times in terms of like how they projected his usage in Philly. But I think that for me, Gainwell is basically, he's a guy that, with Sanders in the lineup, which we have to assume Miles, good thing it wasn't a serious injury. I think he'll just be gone for a couple weeks or whatever. Right. But like with Miles in the lineup, Gainwell has standalone value. So that should factor into your mind when you're talking about picking him up this week.
Yeah.
And also with Miles missing a few games, one of those games being against Detroit, I think Gainwell has significant value.
Right. And obviously another little sneaky ad, obviously it's, if you really need help, would be Boston Scott.
Yeah, I think he'll be...
And you could get him for free.
I think Boston Scott, believe it or not, I'm rhyming now. I think Boston Scott, and look, I was looking to see if he did. He out-carried Gainwell in yesterday's game. Mm-hmm. I think that that's something that could continue. I think we could see Boston Scott.
Yeah, I mean, it could honestly be a coin flip. Like
it could be 12 carries for Boston Scott, 8 carries for Gainwell, but then it would be more Gainwell in the receiving aspect of it, because I think they like him in pass pro, and I think as a receiver.
And I think they would ride, the hot hand, whoever's playing better than the other will get more opportunity.
That will certainly be an element of it too. But Boston Scott got in the end zone yesterday. So
yeah.
Take that for what you will. But like I said, he out-carried Gainwell, just was targeted twice in the passing game, caught one. But Boston Scott's a guy we've seen for years now be a pretty damn good player. You know what I mean?
So and he is owned in 2% of Yahoo Fantasy Leagues. Yeah. So like I said, you could get him for free.
He's there.
For sure. You wouldn't even have to get him on waivers. Obviously, you can get him as a free agent.
You don't think they'll have to use a... I guess waivers, if it's a fob league, you probably spend a couple bucks on him. No?
Yeah, just to be safe.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, Dante Pettis. I guess just go one and one, right?
Yeah.
And so I like Dante Pettis a little bit, man. I think that as I mentioned in the other pod, I think that we're starting to see, and this is going to become more and more exposed, is that Kyle Shanahan just sometimes decides that he doesn't like a guy, right? It may or may not be because that guy's not good at football.
Right.
I think that Dante Pettis, Brandon Ayuk, maybe even Trey Sermon are guys that can be thrown into that realm. And Dante Pettis is a second-round pick. A lot of people were really excited about him and what he could do. And even after his rookie season, kind of like Brandon Ayuk, the end of Pettis' rookie season in San Francisco, he showed some promise. He looked good. He was getting – I remember there was a stat about how much separation he was getting. He was like leading the NFL, this, that, and the other, right? Then he falls off the face of the earth. We don't hear from him. He gets cut, and now he's working his way to the New York Giants. Well, last 2 weeks in New York, he's been targeted 11 times in week 6, and then 5 more times. He caught all 5 of his targets against the Panthers. So 16 targets. He also threw a pass, caught a touchdown. I mean, he has been a legit flex option the last 2 weeks. And with the banged up receiving core that is the Giants, right now, I think that maybe Pettis would be.
Yeah,
I mean, he's only rostered in 1% of leagues right now. So he's not a guy you're gonna have to go out and spend big bucks on, and nor should you. But I think that getting him on your roster.
Yeah, he's a sneaky flyer.
Yeah, because I think that we've seen Galladay be injured before. Tony, who knows how bad that injury is. Shepard, we've seen him be injured before, and now he's missing a game, another game. So I think that getting this guy on your roster because he's healthy and because he's seen pretty good volume on the 2-game sample size that we have. And also, Daniel Jones is playing well enough right now to where if Dante Pettis is the number 1 receiver there, because of injuries.
Well, apparently after this weekend, Daniel Jones is the number 1 receiver there.
Right. I think that Pettis is going to be able to get open, and Daniel Jones is going to trust him enough and be accurate enough to get him the football at all levels of the field. So
so definitely a viable ad for these Week 8 waiver wires.
Yeah. Who else you got?
Alan Lazard.
Wow.
Obviously, with Devontae Adams being out.
That's a very good point.
He hasn't seen a lot of the field this year, I don't believe. I don't think he's –
he's coming alive the past 2 weeks.
Yeah,
week touchdown 6, in each of the last 2.
He saw some production, but obviously – in week 7, 5 of 6 targets for 60 yards and a touchdown. I think you could pretty much call him their number 2 receiver at this point. And he's got a favorable matchup on Thursday night against the Cardinals. And like I said, with Devontae Adams out, he's almost a must start in week 8.
He very well could be. What do you think about Randall Cobb?
He's also a sneaky play.
What is going on with him? Is he just
I don't know what. I think he's just a decoy at this point.
He did catch 3 passes for 22 yards on 4 targets yesterday against the Washington football team. So take that for what you will.
Right.
He may be someone that you just. I mean, I know Devontae's probably not going to miss any more than just this week, hopefully, and so I guess.
Right. This is the week that Randall Cobb could have 15 plus fantasy points with Devontae out. And then not do shit for the rest of the season.
Yeah, that's true. But I think that you're right. Lazard is probably more likely to be that guy, that's going to be just going to have a more reliable role. And, they may have to throw the football against the Arizona Cardinals. Who knows?
So I'm all in on Alan Lazard for a week.
For this week, yeah. I'm with
you. Week 8 waiver wire ad.
Yeah, I think he's – I kind of agree. I like at least for this week. So don't give up too much because he's probably not a long-term play.
Right.
But this week, I agree. We get him on your roster.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So
who else you got?
I got Ricky Seals-Jones, man. I think that he is a dude that probably should have been picked up last week. We may have talked about him last week. I can't
We
remember.
100% talked about him last week.
But right now he's only owned in 54% of Yahoo leagues. That upped by 25% last week. So anybody, if you're in a league where he didn't get picked up last week, it's happening this week.
Yeah, you need to go get him.
He had a good game again. He put back-to-back good games together. Now remember, 2 weeks ago against the Chiefs, he had 4 for 58 and a touchdown. Then, against the Packers this past week, he caught 6 of 7 for 51. So, when you do it twice, they take notice, And remember, Logan Thomas is on IR. Who knows what's going on with him? And so, Ricky Seals-Jones, a talented dude that is finally looking like he found a home in Washington. So, get him. Put him on your team. Especially because I know a lot of you guys need a tight end.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you spent your 3rd-round pick on George Kittle, you need a tight end.
Right.
So go get Seals-Jones. What else you got, Lay?
Well, if you missed out on him last week, like Ricky, another guy that you need to add is Rashad Bateman.
Yeah.
He had another decent outing.
He's only owned in 32% of Yahoo leagues.
Yeah, and he is a talented, big play potential rookie wide receiver, and he's just coming along. I mean, I think he's only scratching the surface at this point. So
yeah, he's only played in 2 games, and he really is flat, like making flash play. He had 80 yards yesterday.
Yes,
80.
And I mean, obviously, 3rd or 4th in the pecking order, probably 3rd behind Mark Andrews and Marquise Brown.
Oh yeah, no, he's 3rd.
But he's definitely worth stashing for the second half of this fantasy season. So go get Rashad Bateman. I think he's a great ad.
I think that Rashad Bateman might be 2nd on the pecking order in terms of volume. I think that, like, if we just were to if we were to filter it from, at the end of this year, look back and say what happened from weeks. They have a bye week in week 8, so what happens in weeks 9 on? I think he could very conceivably see more targets than Hollywood Brown. I really believe that, and I mean, he's seen 6 targets in each of the last 2 games, and those are his first 2 games, right? Hollywood saw a ridiculous 14 targets yesterday against Cincy, but the week before that he saw 5. And there's been many of other times this year where he's seeing 5 targets. He's also had some blow-up games, as we know. But the point is, I think that it's conceivable now that Bateman is on the field. He's just more of a possession-type receiver. And I think Hollywood will go into more of that deep threat, kind of that, field-stretching role, where I still think he'll have some volume, don't get me wrong. But I think that we could see Bateman really being a key contributor there, and no worse than the 3rd option in Baltimore's receiving pecking order.
Mm-hmm.
I got another one, and this guy's kind of like we probably should have grabbed him last week too. CJ Uzomo. Uzomo, dude,
having a breakout season.
Yeah, he really is, and so not only did he go 3 for 91 and 2 touchdowns yesterday, but he caught a touchdown the week before. Granted, on just another 3 catches, but hey, whatever. It's tight end position. It's not like there's a shitload of really good high volume tight ends. But then a few weeks ago, we also saw it against Jacksonville where he went 5 for 95 and 2 touchdowns. You know what I mean? So he's a guy, again, just 19% owned in Yahoo leagues. He's available. In the far majority of leagues, he is available, and he's a dude that
viable starter for definitely he's got a favorable matchup too this week against the Jets. So he's definitely got some streamer potential for this week.
And I think that his volume could very well go up because he's showing good things when you get the ball in his hands, and it's almost like coaching staff's going to be sitting there looking at each other like, hey, maybe we should throw to that guy more often because they're going to start really paying attention to Chase, and maybe that means
Joe Burrow continues to play like he did this past week. I mean, the sky's the limit for CJ.
Yeah.
He's got 5 touchdowns in the past 4 games. So
yeah, he's going crazy.
Yeah, there's a lot to like there. So CJ is definitely a favorable Week 8 waiver wire ad.
Yes, sir. Who else you got?
I'm going to go with Brandon Bolden.
Wow.
Yeah. He saw just 2 carries in Week 7, but he also caught 6 to 7 passes for 79 yards and a touchdown. I mean, he's
you're banking on the James, yeah,
he's the new James White. I think he's this little sneaky play. Obviously, I think you have to play the matchups only because he's not going to get this type of work in every game. What he might, but he's definitely got a highly favorable matchup against the Chargers in Week 8. So I think for this week he's got flex potential. But like I said, I think he is the James White void, and I mean in PPR leagues, I think he's a little sneaky ad.
I like that. This one is kind of, you're probably thinking we know, but Kenyon Drake and also let me add in there Michael Carter. Those guys are only owned. I think Drake is 63% of Yahoo leagues, and that's I say only because right now he very well might be the clear bell cow back for the Raiders, and it might be for the rest of the season. I mean, Josh Jacobs seems to be banged up a good, decent amount of the time. So I think that, Drake is someone I want to make sure that you guys are aware of. And, like, if he's available in your league, I would spend a decent chunk of change on just getting him. Depends on your roster, how much and things like that. But I'd get him on your roster, and I think Michael Carter. Look, the Jets just got beat 54 to 13? Yeah, 54 to 13, right? Michael Carter had a blow-up game. I mean, he had 11 carries for 37 yards, so it's like, okay, it's decent, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then he had 9 targets, caught 8 of them for 67, and so when a young guy is getting more and more involved in the passing game, and he's been a 3-catch guy basically the whole season. Anytime he's been involved in the passing game before, it's been 3 targets. Well, this one, he was targeted 9 times, and he caught 8 of them. So he was the only bright spot on that Jets offense, and he's only rostered in 62% of Yahoo leagues. So maybe you're in one of those leagues where it's your last chance to pull the trigger and get that guy on your roster, and I damn sure think you should do it.
Yeah, I agree.
Anybody else?
Another guy I have on my list is Russell Gage. I know we brushed on the Falcons a little bit in our Week 7 recap, but I think he's clearly the number 3 option there in Atlanta.
Yeah.
He had a very good game in this one, and I think for a waiver wire ad, obviously, if you need a receiver this week, I mean, he's a potential flex play if you have a receiver on bye. But I think he's an intriguing pickup, especially with Atlanta playing pretty well. And then, obviously, they're always going to throw the ball. And like I said before the cast, he's got a good matchup against a shaky Panthers D.
They're not shaky. They're not shaky at all. They're good. It's the offense. But in any case, whether it's a good matchup or not, I think that he's a guy that if the Panthers, like many defenses will for the rest of the year, pay attention to Pitts and Ridley, Gage is a guy that, he could be a pretty decent volume play for the rest of the season. And especially if the Falcons do what we all kind of low-key expect them to do and start losing again,
right,
then we would see this guy volume, would likely to go up in the event of that. So, yeah, man, Russell, and he's only owned in 10% of Yahoo leagues. He was a guy that I if probably I would imagine other fantasy analysts liked before the draft at his ADP, double-digit round guy. And he's had just injuries really, or what the issue has been with him, for most of the year. But it looks like he's healthy, evidenced by his 49-yard touchdown catch against Miami yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's one of those guys where if you don't pick him up now, what will happen is you'll pay full price next week, because there's a very good chance, I've seen it too many times before, this types of patterns, or a guy kind of shows you something and it's not enough to get everybody to bite, and then he shows it to you the very next week again, maybe even in better fashion, and then everybody's like, oh, and now the price skyrockets, supply and demand. So I think get him on your roster now. If he puts up a donut next week, who cares? Because guess what? This week, you can get him for a donut. You know what I mean? You can get him for nothing. So get him on your roster now and just do so, especially if you need help at the receiver spot. Do so and see how it plays out,
Who else you got on your list?
I got one more guy, but it's really a crapshoot. I guess I got 2 more, but I'll just drop both of them real quick. So the first one is Nelson Aguilar. He's owned in 27% of Yahoo leagues, right? So he's not super highly owned, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he's coming off of a game, just 2 catches, but he had 51 yards and a touchdown. And that was in a game where let's face it, they didn't have to throw the ball very often.
Right.
You told me a stat last week about Jacoby Myers had basically double the targets of anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
I think that has to level out a little bit, and I think he's the guy that they actually paid some real money to come in there and be a decent volume guy. They're not using the tight ends so much in a volume way. I think Nelson Aguilar is a guy that could really come on. I mean, if you're running thin at the receiver spots, right, I think that he's a guy. Don't pay anything for him. Get him for free. See what happens. Hold him for a week, maybe 2 weeks, and just kind of, feel it out. See how his role looks to be moving forward. The last guy I have is, and this would really depend on, and I've seen this a million times too, talk about pattern recognition. I've seen a guy like, let's say, Darren Waller miss a game. We don't really know he's going to miss a game. Then all of a sudden, that game turns into 2, turns into 3. Like, maybe there's an injury there that we don't know about, or because I know that when you saw him listed on the injury report, it said like 4 or 5 things.
Right.
So if he misses more games, Foster Moreau could come in there and, he was good last week. Like yesterday, he was, what do you have, 6 for 60 something in a touchdown? So I think that, again, because it's the tight end position, he could be a guy that is better than what you've got moving forward. Like, I mean, that just realistically, because we don't know the health of Waller, and I think that if you can, this is why I like dropping your kicker every week. If you can pick him up, drop your kicker, pick him up for free, drop your kicker, and then see if Waller plays this week. Because if he doesn't play, you've got a top 7 tight end,
right?
For at least for this week. So
yeah,
and that's just my thoughts on it. But I think that's pretty much it for me.
I've got one more guy on my list here. Samaje Perine. I think he's a good hole pick.
That's a decent one, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he is the clear backup to Joe Mixon. The Bengals are playing good right now. I think he's definitely someone that you buy and hold for now and just kind of see what happens. Obviously, if you got running back on bye, you could potentially plug him in.
That's very good advice, because I think that holding him for 2 or 3 weeks makes a lot of sense, because, again, with Joe Mixon, we've seen it before, right? Like, we've seen in 2 or 3 weeks from now, Joe Mixon could come up limping on a play, and that would be all Samaje Perine needs to turn into Damian Harris.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So
another guy I want to talk about real quick is Khalil Herbert. I don't know. Well,
that's right.
Yeah, we brushed up on this in the recap as well. Obviously, he probably got dropped in a lot of leagues coming into this week because everyone kind of thought with Damon Williams being back, he was kind of lose that his role essentially.
Yeah.
And I mean, I even dropped him because I needed the rostered space. But if Khalil Herbert's out there, definitely a week 8 waiver wire ad for you. He played in 79% of the snaps. Or he's playing in 79% of the snaps since he's been in.
Okay.
So,
I mean, and he's like one of the only players I've seen run for 100 yards on the Bucs like that.
Right.
At a high yards per carry average.
Yeah, that was absolutely insane. So definitely he's a start if you have him.
Yeah, man. The more you just sold me on Samaje Perine. Like 11 carries in each of the last 2 games. He's averaged 5.4 and 4.7 yards a carry. Mm-hmm. He was also targeted 5 times in their Week 5 loss to Green Bay, and caught 4 for 24 and a touchdown. He also caught 1 pass for 23 yards in this game. Or in yesterday's game. So and he played 48% of the snaps yesterday.
Yeah,
48%. So, Samaje Perine is I'm actually really into that, because I think you're not going to have to spend a ton on him. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, you might be able to get him for free.
Yeah.
Because everybody's just thinking about it like Joe Mixon's the guy there, and sure he is. But again, we've seen Joe Mixon miss a few games here and there. Also, Samaje Perine is basically playing 50% of the snaps, more than that, over the last 2 games, in terms of like when you average all of his snaps out over the last 2. So I think that's something that we really should not ignore. And, I think that's definitely good advice.
Yeah. Also, I think a QB streamer for Week 8 would be Trevor Lawrence, coming off the bye. He's obviously playing a little better than he was.
Who's he playing this week?
They have who?
Let me see. Seattle.
Yeah.
That's not a bad matchup at all.
Yeah. So
it's not terrible, I guess.
Right. But another streamer is Tua.
Another?
Yeah.
It's possible.
I take that back. I think they're playing the Bills this week.
Ooh, yeah.
So maybe not. But yeah, definitely Trevor Lawrence is a streamer.
Who's another streamer at the quarterback position? Daniel Jones.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Only rostered in 28% of Yahoo leagues.
Mm-hmm.
Playing the Kansas City Chiefs on Monday Night Football. Daniel Jones is feeling himself right now. He's confident. Daniel Jones I think think someone you got to get on your. I mean, if you need a quarterback, your quarterback's on bye. That should be priority number one for you, in my opinion. Daniel Jones,
and Lamar Jackson is on bye this week, so could be a little sneaky play.
There you go.
For defense, the
Okay.
Bengals are a high priority ad if you need a defense this week. Obviously, they're playing the lowly Jets.
Wow.
You think Flacco's going to play in this one, or do you think they're just going to throw him?
I don't think he
into
knows
the Lions
the
den?
playbook, so
Could be a Mike White game again.
But who knows? It's Flacco, right? He's seen a
Right.
bunch of playbooks in his career, so he might.
Yeah,
he
Bengals
might
is
be able to swing it.
Bengals is a hot defensive ad for you in Week 8 for your matchup.
Yeah.
You got anybody else?
I am gonna just take one last glance at these quarterbacks real quick. Who are they playing? Ooh, hey, Kirk Cousins playing the Cowboys. That could be a shootout. Maybe
Definitely be a shootout.
There's a few different quarterback options here. I think that are decent. For streaming. If you wanted to stream somebody, I want to see, and I wouldn't pick this guy up for fantasy, but I want to see what Baker Mayfield's going to look like if he gets to play against the Steelers this coming week, because that would sure be nice. And then what's my guy Goff doing? Not putting up fantasy points this week. He's not doing. He's a good player, but not a fantasy guy. But yeah, so I guess that is that's it for me, man.
Yeah, we'll wrap it up here. But be sure to get in your waiver wire ads in your league. Like and subscribe to this video. Obviously, comment and DM the Fair Shake team.
I'm gonna catch up on the DMs, by the way. I'm gonna go through and answer all of them either tomorrow or the next day. Get your if you need any kind of last minute waiver advice, like I said, hit up the DMs and the comments, and we will make sure to get those answered. As always, we'll see you in the next one. Peace, guys. Take it easy. Peace.